You get a little spotlight.
I like it.
Oh, pretty good light show.
Let me hold on. Let me figure out.
Those are the same ones that were on there. That's the one I was looking for.
Yeah, that's good.
We're almost there.
I gotta label those better.
All right. We're just a little bit. Want to wait for 3:30 exactly?
You can start.
Okay, cool. Well, that'll be a little bit of the introductions anyway, so that'll be fine. Okay. I am Mark Castro. I am the Vice President of the Humboldt County Historical Society. Thank you for joining us today for this wonderful talk that Jerry, Rody, and Erin will be doing. But first, I wanted to introduce Sean, the new Executive Director of the Clark Museum. I don't know, would you like to say a few things just real quick? Yeah. You know, just so the people back home and community kind of get to meet you.
Howdy, my name is Sean. I'm the new Executive Director here at the Clark. I'm really excited to get to be a part of this community and get to know you all better. So thank you all so much for having me. Really appreciate you.
Perfect. Maybe in a second. We'll talk about the lighting in a second, yeah. So as I said, Clark, Humboldt County Historical Society, as well as Humboldt County Libraries have been putting on this speaker series, Saturday speaker series for a number of years now, even through COVID. And so it's just great that we get to keep doing these history talks and people still want to come. So thank you for coming to this December talk. So today we will be hearing about new project from Jerry, Rody, and Erin Scofield. Okay, got that right. About some drone imagery and storytelling from his book, Northern Humboldt Hinterlands. Jerry is an author of 11 books about local human and natural history written for over the last 35 years. Formerly was a historian and ethnogeographer for the Cal Poly Humboldt's Cultural Resource Facility, which I am the current director of. So it's great to have that full circle. His last 5 books were published by the press over at Cal Poly Humboldt, among others. And then Erin Scofield is a professional photographer and videographer who has created online video programs about the Dolomites and the Czech Republic, and has also collaborated with Jerry on their popular lecture series, Celebrating Life in Our Humboldt County. So great topic for Humboldt history. So with that, I will give it over to Jerry and Erin.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, actually, I think you're doing that one up there.
Naturally. Okay, then I won't have this in my hand. I always wave it around in the wrong place. Okay, so we are going to talk about using drone imagery in a history book and also in programs like today's. And we're going to show you a lot of drone images, but we're also going to have some wonderful still shots that will be either in volume 6 that Erin and I are working on right now, or volume 7, which is the last volume in the series that will cover the Eureka Arcata area. So you'll get a real variety of different images and some idea of what we're going to do with the program. Let me do just a little more of an introduction. We could, okay. This, I think, is where a real turning point in my thinking about the history books. Up until now, I've written 5 books all by myself, and they have full color images in them for the most part, and lots of text and lots of footnotes and that kind of thing. But I wanted to do something different for the next book, and the day after my last birthday, Erin went with me. It was a birthday present from her. We went to Corbell and Blue Lake and areas around there, and she did video shots, drone shots, still photography, so we could see what some of this might look like in a book. And one of the places we stopped was at the Indian Arrow Tree above Corbell on the road to Maple Creek. And if you are on the road, there's a small sign that says this is Indian Arrow Tree, and you see a burned snag, and then the top of the tree is lost in the foliage. So with Erin's drone, Hedwig, she was able to go up to the top of the tree and dutifully, at my request, shot about half dozen images like this. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. You know, it's the first time we've ever seen the top of this tree. You can't see it from the ground. But then Erin decided to do something different. And she shot a still shot from up above the Indian arrow tree, showing that entire area, including the Indian arrow tree, which you can see right there. But that's not what got my attention. It was the sheer beauty of this shot, looking down in this regenerating forest and the sunlight. And at that point, I thought, well, we aren't going to just want to do historical photos. We want to do photos of place that show the beauty of Humboldt County and other aspects of it. And Erin's the one that's going to be able to do that and is doing that. And we'll see more of those images. But it was then that I decided for sure that Erin needed to collaborate with me as a co-author on the book. And since then, we've been having a great time going out, shooting these images, and getting prepared for the next volume. So anyway, the program in order of importance: Erin Scofield, Hedwig the drone, and me. I'm just the narrator here. Okay, let's see. Let's do another one. This was one of the first drone shots Erin did. We're up on Neeland Prairie near the Neeland Airport. And I say 1912 because when I look at this, it could be 1912 unless you look really closely and you see a few more modern power poles, and that's about it. But let's see what it looks like. Curious cow. So it kind of sent a shiver down my spine to see this and to think, I could be there in 1912 seeing something almost exactly like this. And Erin is managing to pick the situation, and then with that kind of slow pan that takes you up and over the ridges, take us back to 1912. Okay, Erin. So the result is that the next book, which we're working on right now, Northern Humboldt Hinterlands, will be by Jerry Rody and Erin Scofield. Maybe we'll have to switch the names around. She doesn't want to. Well, maybe for volume 7. Anyway, Erin, on that same trip when we went to Corbell, she took a number of drone shots of Blue Lake. And this is the Catholic Church in Blue Lake. And I was just so taken by that image that when we were mocking up a photo, it might not be on the final cover, but we just started using it for those purposes. If you look real carefully, you're going to see this in some of the other images. Here's a man walking kind of aimlessly about. That's me. And then over here, dressed in a little darker color, furiously working with her screen and her controls for Hedwig. That's Erin. And that happens all the time. I'll stand there maybe next to her and say things that aren't especially helpful, and then Erin will just go to work and create these wonderful videos. So if you keep your eyes peeled during the program, you might, in fact, we were in the Indian arrow tree photo too, but kind of hard to see. Okay, Erin. So this next book, volume 6, will be published by the press at Cal Poly Humboldt, and they've published 4 other volumes in the series already. This is the last one I finished this year, Northern Humboldt Indians. And all of these books are open access, so they're available online for free. People can look at them online or they can download them. And in addition to that, through Kindle Direct Publishing, we publish hardback versions of the books, which you can buy for a lot of money. Some of them are $70. They're really expensive because they're 400 pages long. And what we found out from the director of the press, Kyle Morgan, is here's the problem. We have still shots and videos, right? We're going to have a hard copy version of the book. And how do you put a video into a hard copy version? Any ideas?
QR code.
Yeah, of course. QR code. So where we want people to watch a certain video, there'll be a little QR code that they can scan. It will take them to the press's website, and they'll be able to see each of these videos in a series. So I think this is the first time that the press has done that, and they're pretty excited about trying to do this and come up with a sort of new way of at least presenting local history. Okay, Erin.
Jerry,
Yes.
would it be possible to move forward or to yell or something? I can't hear very well.
Okay. Turns out I don't have to use both hands. Can you hear me now? No.
He's turning it back on.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
No.
Okay.
Hang on, he's over here, turning it back on.
Okay. Now? Oh, yeah. Okay. How's the volume level now?
Good.
In the back there? Okay. So when Erin does these drone videos, I think of it as three basic types. One of them is a, huh?
Hold that up
Okay.
closer to your mouth.
Closer to, like that?
Better.
That okay? Okay. One type is the direct overhead still shot, like this one. So you get like a single image that you wind up using, and that can become a picture in the book. Doesn't have to be part of a video. This is an abandoned dairy farm on the outskirts of Ferndale, about a mile after you come across Fern Bridge. And the place seems like it's been abandoned forever. And you're going to get to see three images of this, so you'll get some idea of what it looks like. It's always fascinated me from the road because this ivy grows over some of the buildings. Always wondered, well, what does it all look like? Well, the only way to find out was to have Erin there with Hedwig, and Hedwig began to show us all of this. So, okay, here is a direct overhead shot, and I'm really taken by this picture in particular. Erin managed to create a kind of symmetry there, I think, of the two big buildings and matched off of the little one. And I think it organizes everything for you really well and makes it very easy for you to kind of orient yourself, because you're going to see some images today from overhead, and at first you say, well, what am I looking at? And then you have to look for a minute, and then you understand, oh, well, it's this and that. Okay, Erin. So now we are going to do a drone video of that same area. I think you have to do it again, yeah. Here we go. There's a later farmhouse here. It's not in very good shape either. And here's the old one that we saw with the ivy growing all over it. And we keep going. And we see that it's still an operating farm. Here's the part that they keep doing their work in, the dairy barn, and the cattle are out there in the field. And then, let's do another one. Here's an oblique shot taken from the air, so you have a little bit of perspective. You're not directly overhead, but you aren't on the ground either, and you can see things as if you're maybe 20 feet off the ground or something. So all three of those, of course, cover this same situation, but I think each in their unique way, and we're going to see examples of those as we go along later today. Okay. This is one of my favorites we did. That day we went to a lot of places down in the Eel River country, and we went to the Valley Flour Creamery, which is just north of Port Kenyon. And the creamery has been inoperable for a really long time, and I thought it's probably just going to fall down. But a couple of owners have taken it over. They're refurbishing it, and actually where you see the kind of Quonset hut buildings in the background, they are creating an organic farm. So you aren't going to have dairy products, but you are going to have a type of food. And okay, let's do it one more, Erin. If we're out in the field, you can tell we're there because Erin has a flame red Kia EV6, and that takes us everywhere. And if you see that car, start looking around for a couple of people, and it means we're doing our work out there. Occasionally, Erin can't use her car, so I have a flame blue Kia, and we use that instead. But this is the one that really shows up. Okay.
Ironically, we both have the same car before we met.
Okay, and once more, please. So here we go. Start off seeing the creamery as it used to be and is being refurbished. And then a little time over there, that's Salt River in the background that's all filled in now with trees. And then we see the dairy farm, and we wind up at the farmhouse and one of their barns. And so that was, how long do you think that was, that video?
10 seconds.
No. 30 seconds exactly. And 30 seconds, Erin sort of told the whole history of that area as it has been from the way back when they were just doing the dairy ranching on up to the present where they're trying to find other alternatives economically. And there's the key again. Okay, let's go again. So we were in Lolita for a series of shots about the railroad and the highway. This is the south end of Lolita, and it's actually a very historic section of town. This road over here at the far left is the original Redwood Highway, and it actually went here and around this way and then down to Fernbridge. And then the more modern road here was the second version of the Redwood Highway. It's now Eel River Drive. And then, of course, this is the tracks for the Northwestern Pacific Railroad. And so there's a point right in here where all of those intersect. I'm not going to show you the railroad things, just way too exciting for an audience like this. Erin had Hedwig up there going about 40 miles an hour down the tracks, and you know, if we did it for the Timber Heritage Society, they would just be transfixed, but they aren't here today probably. Okay, let's do one more. Now we're down where I was pointing, and here's the Eel River Drive, the second Redwood Highway. Here is the railroad up above. And I made a big point to tell Erin that this was the second most dangerous section of roadway of any highway in Humboldt County for a really long time. And the real culprit was this concrete support for the bridge, this pier here. And people, you have a curve coming down, curve coming up, you're distracted by the railroad tracks. So people are getting, you know, in very bad accidents there all the time. So Erin really took that to heart. I wanted her to do a video of it. Show them what you did, Erin. Here's Hedwig. She's over on the wrong side of the road, away from the pier, and stops before she gets to the pier. Erin is so protective of Hedwig, she didn't want to come into any contact with that darn pier. So that's what Erin did to protect Hedwig. Now let's see another situation. Will she protect me? We're up in Neyland. I'm walking up the road, it's kind of steep road, and Erin says, "Stop, Jerry." And I stopped, and she took a still shot of me, and she didn't tell me what was behind me. So, you know, anything for a photo, right? Okay, Erin, show them what happened. There I go. So not quite the same treatment that Hedwig got, but obviously I did survive. Okay. So just on Wednesday, we did some photos around the Eureka area, and we're going to show you a few of those in this next sequence. Why don't you start yeah. This is the Samoa block out in the town of Samoa. Really the only business building that I think was ever there, except for the cookhouse, and you know, severely damaged and deteriorated now by the years. The only thing that's keeping it going, I think, is that the Samoa Fire Department has about half the building for their fire engines. But notice what just happened. We start off down there at the facade, and Erin draws us back, and eventually we see this kind of devastated area where the lumber storage area used to be for the Samoa mill. And I think it's very appropriate there's kind of this haze in the background. It gives you, you know, a feeling of desolation, I think, which is really what you get when you're out there. And if that's not desolate enough, why don't you show the next image? That's a Samoa block with a still shot directly overhead. And there used to be the fire department, and then there's a grocery store, and then a soda fountain, 3 things in there. And my guess is that when the employees were on their lunch break, they would go in this charming little courtyard here and have their food. Can you imagine having to work in that place? Okay, let's go. Okay, now we've moved toward Eureka. This is Tulawat Island. I asked Erin, you know, can you do kind of a pan that shows the houses that are still out there? People will be on Woodley Island and they'll look across the way and you wonder, well, what's out there, what's going on? And so she started off that way. Beautiful day for photography, videography. And I thought, okay, she'll show the houses. But then being Erin, she keeps going. She doesn't want to just do that. So she takes us farther out, Tulawat Island, past where the Gunther Mansion used to be. And then what's showing up over here? Woodley Island. And so then she takes us over, so we see the bridge, and we see Woodley Island, and we finally wind up even seeing a little bit of Eureka plus the marina. So instead of my kind of limited way of just focusing on a little bit of it, she gives us a sense of that whole island area and all the way over to Eureka. I think it's just really great shot. And now, here we are looking at the Eureka waterfront. I remember when I first came up here in 1979, there was a fish processing plant right here at the foot of E Street, big wooden pier and this huge warehouse. You could just stand up there and watch them bring the fish in. And 2 streets down at C Street, there was Lazio's, and they were doing the same kind of thing. Of course, that's all been wiped out now, and you have a much more tourist attractive, I guess, view of things, but you don't have any real sense of what the Eureka waterfront used to look like. I love this shot because it reminds me of the postcards, Steve, that you would see from like the 30s and 40s, and they would do an aerial view of Eureka where they had a number of tall old buildings, and you kind of pick them out from the skyline, and we can still see some of those, like the Vance Hotel and like the Carson Block, and what's the name? This is the apartment and office building at 4th and E, where they had the last...
Commercial building?
Yeah, commercial building, where I heard they had the last elevator operator in the city. I don't know if he or she is still at work, but that was kind of a landmark. Okay, let's do another one. So then we went over to the other side of Eureka, south side, near where I live, and Martin Slough, it defines the whole geomorphology of the south side of Eureka, because it has gone up, it is cut into the land there and created all these narrow little canyons. Martin Slough, the main part of the slough, goes up through the golf course, which is right around the corner here, and it winds up at the duck pond by Sequoia Park Zoo. And so you can follow it down here, and about another quarter mile beyond this shot, it goes into Swain Slough near Elk River Road. So I was fascinated by this with the slough and then this barn, this kind of pastoral scene. So I asked Erin to, have Hedwig take a photo of it. So when Erin sent me the latest batch of images, I looked at that and I said, oh, that's a great shot. She got everything. She got the old, I think this used to be the Lorenzen Ranch. She got the ranch house. She got the fall color. She has the barn. She has the slough. She has the grassy field. So I thought it was really nice. But then, what did Erin do? It's the same barn, same slough, same day, but Erin went to work on it. And as far as I'm concerned, she created something like a painter would do. She, had her own take on it, and when she came to this stopping point, I think it's just a beautiful scene, and so totally different from what we just saw, the everyday kind of thing. So it's a wonderful job, Erin. Let's do another. And this is the Zane Road covered bridge out at Elk River. That's the second one of the bridges as you go by. And we went out there, and the bridge is doing pretty well, I thought, didn't you, Erin? Yeah. But Erin decided it needed a paint job. And so it's mostly just weathered wood, but now in this image we have, what color would you call the paint, Erin? What do you think? Yeah. So if you go out there, don't expect it to look quite like this, but sometime in the future it might. Okay. Now we go up to the mouth of Mad River, and what do we have? A bunch of harbor seals out there, just sunning themselves. I remember years ago seeing them there, and I hadn't looked for a while, so when Erin and I went to look, I didn't know if there'd be many at all, but they seem to be doing just fine. There's, as you can see, dozens and dozens of them, and this is just a short part of the area. Okay, and then we're going up the coast now, and so we went to the overlook near the mouth of Liffenholtz Creek, and Erin got this wonderful shot, I think, because it's really hard, I think, to capture wave action and the foam you get off of it, and then especially the way the foam is breaking up down here, but she managed to capture that. I'm a real fan of early California Impressionist paintings, like 1920s and so that time period, and time and again these artists would try to make realistic foam or spume coming off the waves. And I only found one guy that could ever do it decently, Percy Gray, and all the other ones, it looks like it was marshmallow topping or something. They just can't do it. So I really appreciated this image where you get the delicacy of what's happening with the foam or the spume. Okay. And then, a kind of classic shot of Trinidad Head. I kind of like the way the three small rocks here kind of balance the photo out. Okay. Okay, so I've been kind of zipping along here, and now we're going to relax for about a minute and a half because Hedwig decided that she was going to make a very stately progression around Wedding Rock up at Sumag. So let's take a look at, oh wait, okay. There's Jerry and Erin again. And once again, Jerry, the taller person in the background, is just standing there. And Erin is getting ready to have Hedwig create this video. So let's see what happens. So I started looking at this, and I kept looking, and especially when we get out here by the rocks, I noticed, I'm never going to see this again from this angle. I'm not going to go up in a plane or anything, but now you can see the detail of the fractures in the rock and how it's split apart, the different colorations, and by Hedwig going at a fairly slow speed, we get time enough to look at those things. We aren't just zipping along, we're going to see all the scenery in 10 seconds. We keep going, keep going. And we come back and we get a little bit of the ocean. And out to sea. And we've seen about 3 sides of Wedding Rock now. You can't see us anymore, but we're up on the adjacent rock, and Erin completed that. So Hedwig did a great job, and Erin. Okay, how about this one? Can you orient yourself with this? It took me a moment at first. So do you know about what elevation Hedwig might have been at that one?
Less than 400 feet.
Yeah, that's kind of her ceiling. So, but up quite a ways above the top of Wedding Rock. And so there's Wedding Rock, and here's the trail that you take to get to it. But a view that you probably will never see again unless you buy our book. Okay, let's go on to another. Okay. Remember the slough shots where we had 2 kind of vastly different versions of it? Well, we were up at Stone Lagoon where they have the little red schoolhouse, which actually used to be on the far side of the road, got moved over here by, I guess, the owner of the trailer park. So this is the first one of these 2 images I saw, and I said, great, here's that bright red schoolhouse that's, there in the field, and then there's mist in the background, kind of, standing in front of the trees and creating this, kind of mysterious image for what's back there and all. But I really love the contrast, bright red school and then the gray and green in the background. Well, Erin did another version of this too. So the red schoolhouse is no longer red, it's more orange. And look at the trees. They aren't your standard green conifers. And I looked at this for a long time, and there's several colors up there. There's a kind of dark green with a hint of brown in it, and then there's kind of a light green band there, maybe with a little gray in it. And then in that central band, you've got some of the trees, and the foliage looks almost bronze colored. And I kept looking at it, and then I looked back at the school, and I thought, well, it all fits together very harmoniously. you know, the orange works perfectly with the colors that she chose for the trees. So Erin and I think, are going to work on a way of creating a video of those two photos so we can have it in the book, and you can kind of see the before and after versions of that. And then what about that elk? You know, elk can be pretty scary if you run up close to them. This is one of the scariest looking elk I've ever seen, with that dark head. And anyway, one of my favorite elks. Okay, let's go ahead. Now we're up in Prairie Creek Redwood State Park, and impossible and actually illegal to do drone work in there, you know, to show anything. So these are just going to be ground level shots. Part of the old growth forest where Erin was actually able to show us with a slight opening in the canopy what one of the, where a couple of the old growth trees looked like pretty far up top. And another one, Erin? The corkscrew tree. Well, one more button. Yeah, corkscrew tree. How many of you have seen the corkscrew tree? Yeah, well, you ought to all go see it. You know, it's a couple of miles north of the visitor center, and it's a redwood with several trunks that have intertwined themselves in this corkscrew shape. And the tree's big. It's at least a couple 100 feet tall. And Erin is able to get a shot that shows part of that intertwining. Really difficult to capture that. Let me tell you, I've tried and failed several times. Okay. And
Lost as usual.
well, here I am. And you remember the shot there in Neeland where I was kind of in danger? Well, it looks to me like that big leaf maple could topple over any time. So I think Erin maybe chooses these deliberately dangerous locations for me to be in. I just love it. Actually, it's probably the best photo anyone's ever taken of me. Maybe because it's far away, but I look friendly, I look at least semi-intelligent, and then I'm surrounded by this beautiful park.
I feel like I remember that spot being a bit more dangerous for me than you.
It was.
I was on a log at this point.
Yeah, Erin slipped and she crashed into a log and she injured herself. And yeah, fortunately you survived and I didn't have to carry you out or anything. But yeah, but she did. It shows a level of commitment she had. Okay, we're here on West End Road, Warren Creek. If you've gone out Warren Creek and seen the trestle out there, well, if you stay on the main road there and don't go down by the trestle, it goes all the way into the west end of Blue Lake and near the fish hatchery and crosses over the Mad River to Blue Lake. And what you'll see as you go along there are a series of these concrete structures, and then down at the bottom they have a rusty pipe that's about 2 feet in diameter. And there's maybe 3 or 4 of these as we go along. Does anyone know what they were there for? Yeah. This was the route that the water line took from Swayze Dam to supply water to the city of Eureka. And so 1938, Swayze Dam went into action. They didn't have some of the types of piping that they do today, and so they used redwood stave pipe. And so they have sections of redwood that were, you know, put into a rounded form, and then they were fastened together. And in fact, if you want to see some of this, you can go in the Eureka City Hall, and in the foyer, they have a section of this, of the original pipe in its original form. But all the way along here, when they came to a ranch road, something like that, they would have one of these openings. And Erin realizes my fondness for rust, I think, and so she took this great photo. I'm going to have to work out where I can get a replica of this framed and put it in my house. I just love it.
Jerry,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. Could you elaborate a little bit on the dam? I've never heard it.
Yeah, well, up until 1938, Eureka got its water supply from Elk River. And they had an intake about, half a mile on Elk River Road after you turn off onto the main road down toward Elk River. And it was on the Shanahan Ranch at the time. And so they just had a diversion there where some of the water from Elk River would flow into this sort of tunnel. And at the end of the tunnel, they had a system where the water could be pumped up to water tanks that were at Harris and E Street. And there are photos of several of those tanks there. And Harris Street represents about the highest point in Eureka. And so they could use gravity flow from those tanks to get to a lot of the locations in the city of Eureka. Well, there were a couple of problems with the system. First of all, it had a limited supply, and secondly, it was easily contaminated. Back in the early days when they were still operating the mill at Falk, all of the sewage from the workers' cabins and all of the contaminants could just go into Elk River. So it wasn't an ideal solution. And so they looked for another source, and they finally decided that they could dam the Mad River several miles up from Blue Lake, and then through this system pipe the water in. So 1938, it was operational, and by the 1960s, it had silted in. You know, this was the time period when they were doing a tremendous amount of logging out in the backcountry on both sides of the Mad River. And so what do? They clear cut, they tear up the ground with skid roads and haul roads, and then what happens? It rains, and it rains a lot. So a lot more of the gravel and earth moved into the river than would have in past times. And so within 30 years, it was so silted up that the dam was ineffective in providing the water. And it was yes?
You're not using a
Microphone.
Mike? Okay. So I said it took about 30 years for it to silt in. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. And then they developed the system they now have with the rainy wells down, actually near the mouth of Warren Creek on the Mad River. Anything more about that? So anyway, go to the City Hall. It's the most interesting thing in the City Hall, I think, to look at. So, and it's right there on the ground floor, so check it out. Okay, now we're coming to the climax of the program, and let's take a look. Erin and I did a Pearson program this summer on railroads. And in fact, I had one or two things here that was related to that earlier. But sort of for the climax of that program and for this one, we're going to do a sequence here on the Eel River by the infamous Scotia Bluffs. And so Pacific Lumber Company in the 1880s finally went into operation, and they needed a way to move their cut lumber to wharfs that they had at Fields Landing. So that meant it had to go north, and if they got as far as Alton, near the mouth of the Van Dusen River, they could tie in with the Northwest, well, it wasn't Northwestern Pacific yet, but was going to become that, and then have their cars go all the way up to Fields Landing. So it was up to them to build this section between the Van Dusen and their mill at Scotia. Well, it turned out that the main owners of the Pacific Lumber Company at that point in time were very heavily involved in the silver mining in Nevada. And so they built several railroads over there to get to the mines and to bring ore out and all of that. So they had engineers who knew how to design railroads in rugged terrain, and they brought a couple of these guys out here to assess the situation. So there were two options. One was going along the bluffs. The other was doing two bridges and going through Rio Del, like Highway 101 does today. And at that point in time, almost all of Rio Del was owned by a sort of eccentric individual named Lorenzo Painter. And Painter negotiated with PL, but they could never reach an agreement. Painter wanted a train station in Rio Del, and some people said he wanted a lot of money too. I don't know if it was all that high a price that he was asking, but PL wound up saying no to Painter and decided they'd build it along the Scotia Bluffs. And I think that their railroad engineers had something to do with that because they wanted a real challenge. And this is what they got with going along the bluffs. This is all marine sediment going up the hillsides here. and it, will wash down, it will collapse in an earthquake, it'll just do all sorts of bad things to the rail line. And in fact, for a number of years, they had a warning system that ran along the bluffs that consisted of an electrical wire that was on the riverside of the railroad tracks. And they had a sort of a supervisor in a shack out there who kept track of what was happening. And if a landslide occurred and broke that electrical circuit, it would set off an alarm in the shack. And then she, as it turned out, for a long time, it was a woman who was out there, would phone the wrecking crew from the Northwestern Pacific, and they would come and repair the tracks. Sometimes it took them a while, and there were some serious accidents out there. So they were always having to repair it, but then the rail line closed, and so for the last, 30 years, there's been no maintenance of that line at all. So that's 30 years of nature doing what it wants to do. And so we thought we'd go out and see, well, what kind of shape is the trestle in? Because there's a lot of trestle work along there, mostly trestle. And, could someone even walk across there anymore? I walked as far as the Nanning Creek trestle, which is about midway along, and the trestle was so rickety, I just turned around and came back. And I had to go over one landslide even to get back. So, got Hedwig out there, and first of all, Erin asked Hedwig to show us what it looked like going north. So let's see what happened. Remember, Hedwig's having to cross the Eel River here. It's pretty wide. And we get over, here's the trestle. And now Hedwig is going to follow that. Looks okay right at first. But then what happens? Get some trees in the way, and then by the time you get up here, it's just hillside that's slid down, so you can't even get across, let alone follow a trestle. Okay, so that took care of going north, so then Erin asked Hedwig, let's go south. Hedwig gave up as soon as she saw the forest there. And what did she do? She went out across the Eel, beautiful shot of the river, and started showing us the shoreline over at Rio Del. And this becomes very interesting at the end. Once more, please, Erin. Who's there? Erin and Jerry. And so Erin is directing Hedwig, from that distance all the way across the river, and still managing to get the images that she could get. So we're about ready to give up, but Erin gave it one more try, and a direct overhead shot, and not so worried about, are we going to go anywhere with this, or are we going to have a landslide? But let's just see what it looks like. So let's take a look. Look at the river over there next to it. There we go, about 15 seconds, just utterly beautiful. And with that, we're at the end. Oh, wait. Let's please have a hand for Erin, who did all the work. I just had to talk a little. And now, if we have questions, Erin will answer questions. And will Hedwig want to go up, do you think, or not? Can't? Huh?
If they want.
Oh, yeah. Yes, Wes.
Well, I have a suggestion. Go fly Split Rock and maybe fly around the Split and see that. Split Rock.
Yeah, up on the coast above Prairie Creek. Yeah.
And I was thinking Wedding Rock, I was thinking of Split Rock.
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be an interesting.
And that's a great idea. The only problem with that is it's not in Humboldt County, but we could still fudge it a little, I think. Yeah. Okay. Hal.
Jerry, every once in a while on Google Earth, I'll see Issaquah Buttes Lookout.
Yeah.
And I can see the roof of it and what have you. It doesn't look like but those old lookout towers are fascinating.
Yeah.
And that one I think is on private property, but I don't
Well, it was government property, of course. It was Bureau of Land Management. And there used to be a road you could go out there to get to it. When I was much younger, you could actually drive out there. But now it's been abandoned and the road has become private property and you can't get in there anymore.
Okay, yeah, it looks like it's still in, it's not.
So you're thinking you want to go out and rent it like they do some of these other places, right? Well, you should get in touch with Bureau of Land Management and see, oh, wait, okay, here we go.
I'm just getting her ready.
Okay, okay, I'll talk for a minute more, but this excitement is going to come here.
I
Yeah.
can assure you the locals aren't real welcoming.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, probably not.
yeah,
One other thing, every time I go past that old house on Elk River between, it's standing there on the left or the right-hand
Yeah.
side. Big two-story house
Yeah.
sits back behind a gate.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's Jack Harvey's saloon, or it was, back when, Falk was operating. So bottom story was a saloon, and I've been up in it. And the second story consisted of about a dozen very small rooms. So you know what was going on up there. And the loggers would sometimes like come in, either go on the way to Eureka or coming back after a couple of nights in Old Town, and they would stop at Jack Harvey's and he would collect their mail for them. They could get that there, and of course they could, you know, have a few eye-opener drinks on their way back. And I don't know, later on it had it kind of stuck with the spirit of his saloon. There was a roadhouse there that they called Little Tijuana, and once again I think they used the upstairs rooms, and that was in the 1920s, and eventually it just went into private ownership. There was a dairy farm nearby, but now some guy owns the property and he just stores his equipment out there. And at one point he told me that he intended to fix it up and have like kind of a place where he could visit on weekends, but doesn't look like that's ever happened. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
So she's just under 2 pounds. So I actually have taken her backpacking. What the screen looks like is just this. You're looking at yourself now. And it'll tell me I need to charge its battery, but it should still take off, I think.
So Erin, what range do you have communicating?
So there's a limit of 400 feet. In certain places that I get permission, I can go up to 1,000, and then a distance of 1,000 feet away from me. I tested that limit when I was in Italy, and I got very scared. It's not taking off.
Approached edge of altitude zone.
Okay, there we go, maybe.
Manual mode. Manual mode. Manual mode.
Just 1 second. Maybe another question for Jerry.
Is that the standard camera that comes with that?
Yes, it's a DJI camera, but there is a newer version that's a lot more expensive that comes with a Hasselblad, which is 8K, which is why it's so much more expensive, but it has this massive camera on it. I'm wondering if any of these have charge on them.
On the other hand, you saw the images Erin was able to get with this camera. I mean, think of that overhead shot of Wedding Rock, for example, in detail, I think is wonderful for that.
I have a question.
Yes?
How did you choose the locations that you wanted to film for this book?
Well, it started out that there were obvious ones of historical interest, and so the book's probably going to be divided up into about 30 chapters, and they're mostly connected with a small community or area of activity, like a place like Neeland, which doesn't have much of a community, but there's a lot of ranching clustered around there. And so that is sort of how we start out organizing the book. But then we realized, okay, we're going to need certain images from all of these locations. And some of them are historical images that I had collected already. And now Erin is going to be, as you saw today, she's going to be adding the contemporary images. So, you know, we're going to get as many images from Hedwig as we can out of this and put them in the book. And not sure when we'll be done yet, but I think it's going to be a pretty good sized book.
You guys can imagine.
We're gonna have to.
I would hover about here. When I take it off, it goes 3 feet above, and then I can shoot it off into the distance at a pretty fast rate. And then it has safety precautions, so it'll stop about 4 feet away from any object. You can turn them off, and I learned my lesson about that, so I keep them on. And yes, this is the smallest version you can get, but they go up to really big ones that can water fields for people who don't have active labor in those fields. So this company is really amazing, and I would suggest looking into it when you have the chance, because it's, changed my life. It was a completely random purchase, and then it got me linked with Jerry. So
Yeah.
Have you ever lost it?
I lost it in Italy, but I learned a really good lesson that it has a honing feature where if it gets lost from service, it goes back to its last known home point. So about 10 minutes later, or not 10 minutes, it felt like 10 minutes, but like a minute later, I see it going and landing, and I thought I was going to have to search on some roofs. But yeah, it warns you when it's at a too far of a distance. It also does not let you take off in illegal areas. There's a whole map system where it'll have these big red circles where it is illegal to take off.
A freshwater school.
Yes, and close to schools or airports. Oddly enough, the Neeland Airport did not have that restriction. I don't know why, but we were able to do there. But it's very important that it's around schools because people would be able to look over them.
Yeah. And Erin's actually being very kind to me, not mentioning another crash that we had. When we were first doing the filming for the Pearson program, I took her down to Humboldt Redwood State Park, and we were down at a spot where there had been an Indian village, Sabu Ghana, and we were going to walk around this point to get to the village. And along the way, I think I said, what about getting a couple of photos of the eel from right there? And so Erin did that. And on the way back, we had a little problem.
I mean, it was my fault. I crashed it into a tree, but it managed to land directly below instead of in the eel.
Yeah.
And I noticed there was a lot of poison oak around it, so I insisted. I went down there and very gently took it out, and he had all this like wipes for me to make sure I didn't touch anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, hazard of the job.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So,
Are you linked up with there's a lot of people locally that are using drones for doing similar stuff, and I wonder whether there's kind of a group that needs to.
There is a Facebook group. It's a very small one. I almost was able to do the rumble over the redwoods, but we weren't able to get permission for that in advance. But it's a small but cool group of people for sure.
Yeah, you guys are all kind of pioneers.
Yeah, I mean they've come so far just in the last 10 years. I remember people using them 10 years ago, and it was not this nice. Aldron?
How much wind can it handle?
This one, not a lot. Going over the Eel River for the railroad was about the most and it warns you. It's giving you a lot of warning signs, but that's just because it's so light. The bigger ones can withstand. You can dump a bucket of water on the newer ones and still manage to keep flying. This one can't really handle tiny rain, so, but it's good for carrying around in certain situations. I do want to upgrade eventually, but for now this has been perfect.
Hal?
I watched this guy online. It's Ghost Town Living, and he owns Cerro Gordo. He owns a ghost town on the way to Death Valley, and he'll take off on a motorcycle or a dirt bike on a trail. And that thing will get right behind him. Can you program it to where it will shadow you and stuff? It's amazing.
Yeah, this is kind of an independent videographer. A lot of people who are influencers will buy this just because they don't have to bring someone along with them. It has a feature where it films you and tracks your face and your body, and you can just run or walk, or you can have it on this screen attached to an object like a car. That's how they get a lot of those shots from up above. A lot of film companies are using the bigger, better models of this to avoid having to attach a drone to a flying object. So it's helped the film industry a lot too.
I think there's someone back.
Oh, yeah, I had a question. You mentioned the water supply from Elk River. Was that connected to the Rick's building in Old Town?
The Ritz building?
Rick's.
Rick's building. Rick's he was an owner of the water company for a while, but the Rick's building, I'm not sure of the connection with that. You know, their distribution point were the water tanks up at Harris Street. And I don't know about, well, like I said, Rick's owned the company, but I don't know if he had anything special going on with his building. Okay.
And was that all redwood stave pipe?
I think so, but I haven't found out. Jack is nodding his head that was. Yeah, that was what they used in those days. In fact, a lot of redwood actually was used for that purpose because they didn't have pipes of the right quality for transporting a lot of things, like oil lines, for example, would use it, things like that. In fact, some of the owners of these redwood stave pipe companies were involved in leadership positions in the Save the Redwoods League, and Greg King in his book, Shadow Forest, he Ghost Forest, yeah, Ghost Forest. He sort of exposes the self-interest that these people had in being in a controlling position with a group that's supposed to be saving the redwoods, where they wanted access in their business to have a lot of redwood material that they could use for their pipe companies.
With the redwood piping, did they just take a redwood tree and auger, section it and auger it out, or did they have to actually bend the wood to get around?
Well, they were staves that were, they were like slices of the wood that were then bent slightly. So I don't know how long the individual sections were, but like you could imagine a thin piece of redwood, let's just say 6 feet long, for example, and then they could bend it enough, there'd be enough curvature for something that was, say, 2 feet in diameter, and then by attaching a metal sort of clamping device around the outside, they could keep it in that form.
Like the siding behind you in that alcove there, it's just linear staves, like in a barrel, instead of tapered, they were linear, surrounded by
Yeah.
metal hoop.
Yeah.
Clamp it all together.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think the water tanks, the Rick's water tanks, I think they were wooden staves originally.
yeah, yeah. Maybe use redwood for just about anything that it worked for, and it was very good for a whole lot of things. Other questions? Okay, I guess that's it.
Thank you.